as we move around the house, there are plenty of little bits to still put in to clean things up. This is a base molding that we put in. We'll put this out, have a demonstration now on how to put this in. We put it in as a sweep. We define a profile, and then we define a path that profile should take. So the profile looks like this shape right here. This is a custom profile that I made. And then the path is simply from here over to here. If we look at the floor plan, the path that I defined simply went from here to here. And then I defined which profile I wanted to use. And that's how I got that molding in there. Now, if you come over here to this view, you can see my base molding. That's a custom base molding because I happen to like a much deeper base than what is traditional. But in a typical housing situation, you're going to see this, and this profile is available to you in your Revit model. It's a generic material. You can obviously change the material as you can in many other components. And so that profile, I simply said the path was going to be from here around and then back to there. So I'm going to put my custom profile in and show you how to do that. So basically, we go over to the architecture tab, and then the model in place. We're going to put it in the casework family and say, okay. And now Revit wants to know, well, what do I want to do? This time, I'm not going to do an extrusion. We've done many of those. I'm not going to do a void. We've done that to cut the holes in the countertop. I'm going to do a sweep. And when I tell Revit that I want to do a sweep, the first thing it wants to know is where's the path of that sweep. So I'm going to sketch the path and just draw from right here to right here to right here. So that's the path that I want the sweep to take. I haven't defined a profile yet, so that would be my next step, is to say okay to the path, and then it says, all right, what profile do you want? Now, if you haven't loaded the correct profile, then you would simply say load a profile and go to the Imperial Library and look for profiles. There's a folder for profiles. So we'll look there. And then we divide that up into other types of profiles, but ours is finished carpentry, so we're going to use that. And then if you tell Windows to show you the thumbnails of these objects, then Revit will show you the thumbnails. And so I picked this base one as one of the profiles. And there's all kinds of other profiles as well as you can customize. So I've customized some of my profiles to be a little bit more robust, so to say. Okay, so I'm going to say okay to that because I've already selected my profile. It's already loaded. So I'm going to come over here and say that I want to use my base 1B 7 1/4 by 5/8. Okay, so that's the profile that Revit's going to load, and you can see now that it's loaded that profile. It always loads that profile on the first line that you draw. So there's my profile. I haven't paid any attention to the constraints yet. So I'm just going to say, okay. And I'm going to say, okay. And then we have a section here. So let's go take a look at that section through there. And there's my profile. Now, when I click on that profile, you can see that it's partially in the wall. So the profile needs to change. So I'm going to edit in place and just change the constraints of that. It's also down to the finished, to the subfloor as opposed to the finished floor. So I'm going to raise it up. The vertical profile, I'm going to raise it by 3/4 of an inch. And then I'll measure how far I have to move it from this corner all the way over to here is 5/8 of an inch. So now when I click back on my profile, I'm going to change the horizontal profile location relative to the where the profile was put in by 5/8 of an inch. And now it's in the right location. It's up against the wall and it's up against the finished floor. And the purpose of that is really to hide the transition between these two materials, because they're never a beautiful connection like that. But secondarily, gypsum board is not a good material to have water splashed up against it or any kind of a liquid. And as you clean the floors with any kind of a liquid, you're going to splash it up against the gypsum board. So that's another reason to hide that, is to get a material that is resistant to the water or a liquid. And then thirdly, gypsum board is not good for absorbing impact. So if you kick it with your shoes or the vacuum cleaner or anything punches into it, it will deteriorate, and it will not look good. So that's why we put this. Now I can change the material here. What is it? Right now it's by category. I'm going to change it to new cherry, which a material that I made myself, and say okay. So let's go look at that. And there it is. There's the material that I just put in. I put the base molding in right there, and that's the profile. And if we take a look at the rendering of what I just did, you can see that the base molding follows the path that I drew, and it uses the profile that I recommended or selected for the base of the house there. And so we go around in every place and put the base molding in, and I'll do that tutorial for that at another, for the rest of it, I probably won't do another tutorial. I'll just do the work and then show the finished product. But you've got a good example of how to put your profile, your base molding in. You don't have to use this particular profile, or you don't have to customize a profile. You can use a standard profile and put your base molding into around the base of your house.